Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a serious stack of papers today, and I'm going to be honest. When I first looked at the title of our main source, I thought I might have grabbed a manual for a physics engine by mistake. It's titled Dynamics of the Transformational Component.
It does sound like something out of a theoretical physics journal, doesn't it? But we're actually looking at something much, much closer to home. We're looking at the engine inside your own head.
Right. We are talking about language, but not the kind of, language advice you get on social media, like 10 words you're pronouncing wrong.
Right.
This isn't about etiquette. It's about architecture.
Exactly. We are popping the hood.
Yeah.
Most people think of language as a collection of words and a list of rules we learn in school. But the source material we're covering today, which comes from the Minimalist program in linguistics, argues that language is actually a biological computational system.
A machine.
It's a machine.
Mm.
And the big question this research asks is that machine perfect?
And that's the hook that got me, the idea of perfection. Because if you listen to a toddler talk or, even read a transcript of a casual conversation, perfect isn't the first word that comes to mind. It feels messy.
That's true, but that's performance. That's the driver making mistakes. We're looking at the car itself. The system called CHL, the computational system of human language. The hypothesis here is that this system is an optimal solution to a specific biological problem. It's designed to be as efficient as theoretically possible.
And to test that, the text takes a really interesting approach. It doesn't look at the beautiful poetry we write. It looks at the failures. It looks at why sentences crash.
Crash is the technical term, and I love it.
Me too.
It's not just that a sentence is awkward. It's that the computation fails. The system hits a wall and it shuts down. And by analyzing these crashes, we can figure out the rules of the road.
Okay, so let's look at the toolkit. If this is a machine, what are the gears? The text identifies two main operations. The first one seems pretty harmless. Merge.
Merge is the fundamental act of human thought, really. You take two objects, say the word blue and the word bird, and you just snap them together to make a new object. Bluebird.
Simple enough.
It is. And it's cost-free. The system loves merge. You can do it forever. The big blue bird on the fence near the house.
Yeah.
You just keep snapping Lego bricks together.
But it's not that simple.
No. If language were just merge, it would be a very simple system. But it's not.
And this is where the villain of the story comes in, or at least the source of all the drama. Displacement.
Right. Displacement. This is the phenomenon where we pronounce a word in one place, but our brain interprets it as if it were somewhere else.
This is the move operation.
Yes. Think about a question like, what did you buy? The word what is at the very front of the sentence. But semantically, in terms of meaning, it's the object of buy. In a logical world, you would say, you bought what?
So the word what started at the end, next to the verb, and then teleported to the front.
Essentially, it moved. And for a long time, linguists looked at this and thought, well, that's an imperfection. If the system is designed to be efficient, why move things around? Why spend the energy? It seems redundant.
It's like packing your suitcase in the bedroom and then dragging it to the living room to unpack it. Why not just leave it where it was?
That is the core puzzle. But the minimalist explanation is that move isn't a flaw. It's a necessary compromise. You have to remember, the language machine doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has to interface with two other systems.
The interfaces. This is crucial to the text.
Right. You have the sensor motor system, that's your mouth and ears. It deals with sound, which is linear, one word after another. Then you have the conceptual intentional system, that's your mind, your thoughts, that deals with meaning and hierarchy.
That's often called LF, or logical form.
Exactly. So move happens because these two bosses have different demands.
Okay, so what are the demands?
Well, sometimes a word needs to be at the front of the sentence to signal, hey, I'm asking a question for the sound system, but it needs to be connected to the verb to make sense for the meaning system. So it moves. It satisfies both masters.
But the text mentions that when something moves, it doesn't just vanish from its old spot. It leaves a trace.
Think of it like a breadcrumb. When what moves to the front, it leaves a silent copy of itself behind next to by.
We don't pronounce the copy.
No, but the brain sees it. It forms a chain. The brain uses that chain to link the word what back to the verb by.
So the brain is constantly drawing these invisible lines between where a word is and where it actually belongs.
Precisely. And this is where the crashes come in. If that chain gets broken or if the path is blocked, the meaning system, the LF interface, can't find the connection. It says, I have a word here, but I don't know what it's doing. And boom.
The derivation crashes.
It crashes.
I want to dig into a specific type of structure that the text seems to really struggle with, or, well, the author seems to view it as a necessary evil, adjunction.
Adjunction, the headache of syntax.
Why is it such a problem? To me, it just sounds like adding extra detail, like, I ran quickly, I just added an adverb. What's the big deal?
The problem is hierarchy. In a, let's say, a perfect system, when you merge two things, A and B, the new object clearly belongs to one of them. If I merge read and books, the result is still verb-like. It's a verb phrase.
Okay.
But adjunction is like sticking a Post-it note on a document. You aren't really changing the document. You're just tacking something onto the side.
So the system gets confused about who's in charge.
The text argues that adjunction creates ambiguity in the label. It violates something called uniformity. Because the system craves perfection, it tries to ban adjunction. The text lists only a few very specific scenarios where you're even allowed to do it.
It's like a strict HOA. No additions to the house unless you meet these 3 criteria.
Pretty much. You can adjoin to a vacuous target, something that doesn't have a strong semantic role. Or, and this is the fascinating loophole, you can adjoin something if it effectively disappears later.
Disappears.
This brings us to reconstruction. The text argues that you can get away with a messy move if, at the level of meaning at LF, the brain puts the piece back where it started.
Okay, can we walk through the example from the source? Which pictures of John did he like?
Yes, this is a classic detective story in linguistics. Let's look at the rules of pronouns. In English, you generally cannot say he liked John's pictures if he refers to John.
Right. He implies someone else. If I say he liked John, I'm not talking about John talking to himself. He can't command John.
Exactly. We call that condition C. A pronoun can't dominate the name it refers to. But look at our sentence. Which pictures of John did he like? Structurally, John is tucked inside that phrase at the start.
Right. He is the subject coming later in the sentence. So technically, John is to the left of he. So we should be allowed to let them be the same person. But my gut tells me, which pictures of John did he like? Peck's on. No, he is still someone else.
Your gut is right. And that's the proof of reconstruction. Even though pictures of John is at the start of the sentence, your brain, at the interface level, puts it back in its original spot after like.
So deep down, the brain is actually reading. Did he like which pictures of John?
Yes. And in that position, he dominates John. The rule is violated, so the interpretation is blocked.
Wow.
The fact that you can't make them the same person proves that the brain reconstructed the movement.
That is wild. It means we aren't interpreting what we hear. We are interpreting a hidden structure that exists only for a split second in the computation.
And that's why adjunction is tolerated there. The messiness of the movement is cleaned up by putting the furniture back before the final inspection.
Okay, speaking of messiness, let's look at a scenario where the cleanup doesn't work. This is the part of the text that compares English and French. It explains why John reads often books. Sounds so terrible.
There's a perfect demonstration of the system's economy. We have 2 sentences. Sentence A. John reads often to his children.
Sounds a little formal, maybe, but it works.
It works. Sentence B. John reads often books.
Crash. Hard crash. Well, you have to say John often reads books. You can't put the often in the middle there.
But why? Why does to his children work in that spot? But books doesn't. They're both sitting in the same place relative to the verb.
The text mentions Larsonian shells, which sounds like a pasta dish, but I gather it's about how the verb moves.
It is. The idea is that the verb reads doesn't just sit still. It starts low in the structure and climbs up a ladder. It moves to a higher position, usually called little v, or the light verb position.
Okay, so the verb climbs up. The adverb often is hanging onto the ladder somewhere in the middle.
Right. Often is a join to the structure. Now we have books. Books is the object. For books to be allowed in the sentence, it needs a ticket. In linguistics, we call this ticket case, specifically accusative case.
And it has to get this ticket stamped by a manager higher up in the structure.
Exactly. Books needs to check its case features with a functional head up the tree. But here's the problem. The adverb often is standing in the way.
It's blocking the line of sight.
It's blocking the movement. There's a principle called relativized minimality, or shortest move. The system is lazy or efficient. When the manager looks down to stamp a ticket, it looks for the closest eligible candidate.
And it sees often first.
It sees often. Now, often doesn't need a case ticket. It's an adverb. But it's an intervener. It's a physical block in the geometry of the sentence. Because often is closer than books, the relationship between the manager and books is severed.
So books is left standing there without a ticket.
And a noun without a case ticket causes the derivation to crash. The system says, I have an unauthorized object here, and shuts down.
But wait, why does John reads often to his children survive? To his children is right where books was.
Because to his children is a prepositional phrase. It has the word to. The preposition to handles the case for children. The phrase as a whole doesn't need to check accusative case with that higher manager. It doesn't need that specific ticket.
So it doesn't matter that often is blocking the view, because to his children isn't trying to make eye contact with the manager anyway.
Exactly. There is no tendency to block. So the system says this is fine, and the sentence processes correctly.
It's amazing that such a tiny difference, just the presence of that one word, to, completely changes the geometry of the sentence. It's not about style, it's about mechanics.
That's the takeaway. Grammar isn't a list of do's and don'ts. It's a geometry problem. It's about distances, blockers, and movement paths.
Speaking of illegal moves, the text brings up another kind of crash called improper movement. This sounds like a penalty in football.
It's actually very similar. The system has zones, we call them A positions for arguments like subjects and objects, and A bar positions for things like operators. You can't just hop between them whenever you want.
The example given is, John is illegal to leave.
Which sounds like gibberish. We know what it means. It is illegal for John to leave, but you can't take John and move him to the front.
Why not? We can say John is likely to leave. Why is illegal different from likely?
It comes down to where John starts. In it is illegal for John to leave, John is getting his case ticket from the word for. But if we try to treat it like John is illegal to leave, we run into a null case issue.
Null case.
It's a special kind of ticket reserved for invisible elements. Think of the sentence, I want to go. Who is going? I am. But grammatically, the subject of to go is a silent placeholder we call PRO. PRO has null case.
So John, a real loud pronounced name, tries to park in a spot reserved for a ghost.
And the system rejects it. John needs a real case ticket. The spot associated with illegal only offers null case. So John can't start there and he can't move through there.
A mismatch of credentials.
Exactly.
It seems like this system is incredibly rigid. It has these strict rules about where you can start, where you can stop, and who you can jump over.
Rigid, yes, but efficient. That's the key. It doesn't want to scan the whole sentence every time it makes a move. It only wants to look at the immediate neighborhood.
This connects to the concept of cyclicity in the text, the extension condition. This was a strong visual for me. The idea that we build sentences like a tower.
That's the standard view. You build bottom up, you take two bricks, merge them, take a third brick, merge it on top. You are always extending the tree at the top.
You don't go back and shove a brick into the foundation after you've built the fifth floor.
Right. Because that would be inefficient. You'd have to dig through the structure you already built. But
adjunction, our old friend.
Adjunction breaks this rule. If I say, I read the book, and then I decide to add quickly, I read the book quickly, structurally, that adverb might need to tuck in somewhere in the middle of the tree.
So the text is conflicted. It wants the system to be perfect and cyclical, only building up, but the data shows we keep inserting things in the middle.
It highlights a tension in the theory. The text suggests that maybe our definition of the top is flexible, or maybe adjunction is a special exception. But it shows that the quest for perfection is dealing with a very complex reality.
Let's look at one final example from the source that pulls this all together. It's a simple phrase. They looked angry to him.
A very common sentence.
Yeah.
But under the microscope, it's a dance.
How so?
Well, think about the relationships. Looked is the verb. Angry describes they. To him is the person experiencing the look.
But they aren't just beads on a string, one after another.
Yeah, the text uses that shell analysis again. The verb looked starts low, sitting next to angry. Then it raises up to the light verb position. The subject they starts low inside the verb phrase and moves all the way to the top to be the subject.
So everyone is changing seats.
Constantly. And the to him phrase is sitting off to the side. The profound point the text makes here is that surface order is misleading.
It's a disguise.
It is. If you just look at the linear order, they looked angry to him, you might assume looked and angry are the closest pairing because they are next to each other. But structurally, the movement paths tell a different story. They has a relationship with angry, even though they're separated by the verb.
So bringing this all back to the beginning, we started with a question, is the language machine perfect?
And the minimalist answer is a qualified yes. But it's not perfect in the sense of being simple or, error-proof for the user. It's perfect in an engineering sense.
It satisfies the interfaces?
Right. It satisfies the need for sound, which is linear order, and meaning, which is hierarchy, in the most economical way possible.
Even the crashes are part of the perfection.
Especially the crashes. A perfect system should crash if you feed it garbage. It's like a circuit breaker in your house. If you plug in too many things, the power cuts. That's not a flaw, that's a safety feature. The crash prevents the meaning system from receiving a nonsensical instruction.
And displacement, that expensive moving of words, is actually the optimal solution to linking sound and meaning.
It allows one item to do double duty. What acts as the object of the verb in the signal that we are asking a question. You get two functions for the price of one word.
That is efficiency.
That's efficiency.
It really changes how you experience your own thoughts. Every time I speak a sentence that doesn't crash, I've solved a massive, multidimensional logic puzzle in milliseconds.
And you did it without even blinking. You navigated the Larsonian shells, checked your case tickets, avoided the blocking adverbs, and respected the chains.
Here is a thought I want to leave you with, something that really struck me reading this text. We tend to think that we use language to express whatever we want. We feel like we are the masters of our speech. But if this text is right, and the system is this rigid geometrical engine, how much of our thought process is shaped by what the engine allows? Do we phrase things a certain way because that's the reality of the world, or simply because saying it any other way would cause a computational crash?
That's the ultimate question. If the architecture is fixed, then the limits of our language really might be the limits of our world. We can only think what the syntax allows us to build.
Are we shaping the language, or is the geometry of the system shaping us? Something to think about the next time you correct your grammar. Thanks for listening.
Keep diving deep.